It's been 70 years since our favorite park opened.
And just as Walt said, it has continued to grow and change throughout the years. So today, we will talk about some of the Disneyland rides that have been lost and even forgotten through the years.
Fastpass facts.
America Sings. In 1974, Disney was preparing to celebrate the nation's bicentennial, and for this, the Imagineers developed a new attraction with the unique Disney style, the musical history of America being told by singing and dancing animals. This attraction was America Sings. It opened on June 29, 1974, replacing the Carousel of Progress, which had been moved to the Magic Kingdom in 1973. The show was hosted by Sam the Eagle and Ollie the Owl. The rotating theater took park guests through 4 acts, in which a cast of audio animatronics animals entertained the audience by singing songs from various periods in America's musical history. The Enchanted Tiki Room and the Country Bear Jamboree had introduced the concept of audio animatronic musical review, but America Sings took the concept to a new level. These animatronics had an impressive range of motion, incredible voice work, and an excellent design by Mark Davis. But the enthusiasm for the bicentennial passed, and America Sings did not fit with the Tomorrowland concept. And so, after a run of almost 14 years, it closed in April 1988. There were many animatronics in the attraction, and it would have been so awful to see them all go to waste. So Imagineers took these animatronics, recycled them, and put them into different attractions. A couple of geese from America Sings stayed in Tomorrowland. These geese didn't even wait for America Sings to close before becoming long-neck robots for Star Tours. And most of the critters took up residence in Splash Mountain because they fit right in with the ride's characters. Sam the Eagle and Ollie the Owl were also recycled as Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit for Splash Mountain.
Unfortunately, when Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened, Disney decided not to include them in the ride. It's a really sad decision, and today, they're completely retired.
Rocket to the Moon, Flight to the Moon, Mission to Mars. Rocket to the Moon opened at Disneyland in 1955 as a simulated trip to the moon. In this attraction, guests were seated around a circular screen on the floor in the center of the theater, with a circular screen directly above it on the ceiling. The bottom screen showed where guests had been, while the top screen showed guests their destination, the moon. Still, the Moonliner had looked futuristic in 1955, but by the late 1950s, it already looked like a relic of the past. So, Rocket to the Moon closed permanently, along with the Moonliner, on September 5, 1966. The show building was demolished. Then in 1967, with the Apollo program underway, astronauts traveling to the moon was likely to happen soon. So the attraction received a name change to Flight to the Moon when the new Tomorrowland opened that same year. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon as part of Apollo 11. The attraction started to show its age, and 6 years later, Flight to the Moon closed. In 1975, Disneyland's Flight to the Moon was replaced by Mission to Mars. Mission to Mars was very similar to Flight to the Moon. In fact, many people think that it was the same attraction. There were some changes, of course. It was an updated show using the same show building and audio animatronics cast. Mission to Mars was closed in 1992 to make way for the new Tomorrowland project that Michael Eisner had planned. It was supposed to be replaced by Alien Encounter, but sadly, this whole Tomorrowland 2055 project was canceled, and instead, Red Rocket's Pizza Port opened in 1998, where Mission to Mars used to be. Flying Saucers. Flying Saucers opened at Disneyland in 1961. This attraction brought life to a relatively quiet Tomorrowland. They were the bumper cars of the future. Guests rode on personal flying saucers on a cushion of air, similar to an air hockey game, which played in a similar way to bumper cars with guests ramming each other with their saucers. As the ride began, the saucers would be subject to a high volume of low-pressure air directed underneath the saucers, using a grid of circular valves from a plenum chamber below the field on which they operated. As the saucers moved about the field, the valves would open and close in response to their proximity. As guests shifted their weight in any direction by leaning, saucer movement would respond using an air jet derived from the increased pressure in the saucer's plenum. The problem with this ride is that it showed more ambition than practicality. reality. In reality, the ride had many issues. There were many problems with the jets that shut down the attraction for long periods of time. There were issues with guests' body weight because small guests couldn't move their saucers, and larger guests couldn't even get off the ground. Other problems had guests turning their saucers completely over. Apart from that, it was expensive to operate, maintenance was intensive, and it did not fit the normal Disneyland guest flow, in that a relatively small number of riders were able to participate on any given day. So the flying saucers did not survive the transition to New Tomorrowland. When New Tomorrowland opened in 1967, the space that this ride occupied was turned into the Tomorrowland State. Disney tried to bring back the concept shortly at Cars Land with Luigi's Flying Tires in 2012, but it closed in 2015 to make way for the fantastic Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters, which opened in March 2016. People Mover Rocket Rods.
The first People Mover installation is already in daily operation at Disneyland. On peak days, it carries nearly 40,000 passengers.
One of the attractions that we miss and would love to see back at Disneyland is the People Mover. Disney introduced the People Mover in 1967, and it gave guests a scenic 16-minute tour around all Tomorrowland, starting at Tomorrowland's entrance, going into the Adventure Through Inner Space building, past the shoppers in the character shop, then going in and out of the Carousel Theater near the Submarine Lagoon, through the waiting area of the Cinerama Theater, and, as of the late 70s, inside of Space Mountain. The original People Mover was replaced in 1995 by Rocket Rods. Imagineers took the People Mover and tried to change it into a new thrill ride that promised to complete the course that took the People Mover 16 minutes in 3 minutes. But the ride didn't work correctly because there was not enough budget to change the tracks, and they were not made for the high speed and energy that the Rocket Rods needed. As a result, the attraction broke down constantly, so it was often closed for refurbishments. Then on September 25, 2000, Rocket Rods closed, never to be opened again. The People Mover tracks remain abandoned as a constant reminder of the attraction's existence at the park, and we really hope it can come back one day. Mickey Mouse Club Circus. Just after Disneyland opened in 1955, Walt wanted to have a circus inside the park. He always loved the circus and thought it was a great idea to have a circus tied into the new Mickey Mouse Club television show. So the Mickey Mouse Club Circus was created. The show started with a parade that went down Main Street featuring animals, clowns, and even the Mouseketeers. Then it came to 2 huge circus tents being set up on the edge of Fantasyland. There, 2 75-minute performances took place every day. The show also had acrobats, aerialists, wild animals, and the Mouseketeers. But this circus was a mess, with animals escaping from the tent and fighting inside their cages, including an incident in which a Black Panther bit off the paw of another animal in front of a live audience. In addition, performers misbehaved between shows where they would gamble, drink, walk around in various states of undress, and curse strongly, and often even with the young Mouseketeers nearby. And then there was also little interest from guests. People went to see Disneyland, not a circus. The circus stayed as long as it did because Walt really wanted it there. But Imagineers had a hard time running it and making the effort of trying to keep it under Disney standards. So after a while, the circus was closed down. Country Bear Jamboree. Country Bear Jamboree was an opening day attraction at Magic Kingdom, and it became so popular that it was replicated at Disneyland a year later in 1972. It was actually the first Disney World attraction to be replicated at Disneyland. Disneyland even created a new area of the park inspired by the bears, called Bear Country. The attraction is a stage show with about 20 audio animatronics, and most of these characters are bears who perform country music. The idea for this attraction actually dates back to the 1960s, when Walt Disney was planning to build a ski resort in the Mineral King Valley. In addition to the standard skiing activities, Walt wanted his ski resort to include some entertainment for the guests. One idea that came up was a musical variety show put on by the local wildlife. This project was led by Mark Davis, and he began coming up with many bear musical groups. The project and attraction continued being developed after Walt's death, but environmental concerns blocked it, and the resort, along with the attraction, was shelved. But of course, it came back. When the plans for Walt Disney World were being made, the project was revived, and it became the Country Bear Jamboree that we know today. When the attraction was recreated at Disneyland, Imagineers thought that it would be as popular here as it was at the Magic Kingdom, and they even added an extra theater so that the attraction could have extra capacity. But this was not the case. Disney tried everything they could to make it relevant. It was the first attraction to have a holiday overlay in hopes that people would visit it more often if it changes during the holidays. And they even created the Country Bear Vacation Hoedown overlay. But still, the attraction was almost always empty. So Disney decided to close it and make way for a more popular character, Winnie the Pooh. So the attraction closed forever in 2001 to be replaced by the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Submarine Voyage. The submarine voyage through liquid space was created to remove the extremely unreliable phantom boats at Tomorrowland. This ride opened on June 14, 1959, as one of the first rides to require an e-ticket. Submarine Voyage featured vehicles designed to resemble submarines that would take guests on a journey into the deepest parts of the ocean, where animatronics and props could be seen underwater. The original idea for this ride was supposed to feature real fish and other sea creatures, but this idea proved to be unfeasible. But during the summers of 1959 to 1967, there were mermaids in the lagoon. They could be seen sunbathing themselves and performing synchronized swimming and underwater stunts for 4 hours each day. Disney ended this feature in 1967 after several mermaid performers reported health concerns related to the submarine's diesel exhaust fumes and the highly chlorinated water. On September 9, 1998, the submarine voyage was closed due to its low hourly capacity, aged effects, and high maintenance and labor costs. And when it closed down, a new attraction was promised to come in its place by 2003. This new ride was supposed to be based on Atlantis: A Lost Empire. But when Atlantis bombed at the box office, all that ever came of the planned ride was a meet and greet spot in front of the lagoon with Milo and Kida. The submarine lagoon was suddenly drained in April 2005, exposing the fading rockwork and underwater figures. Walls went up around the lagoon, announcing that Submarine Voyage would return as the Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. The old figures were auctioned off and replaced. In 2007, Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage was opened. This attraction is very similar, but a lot more friendly. Using the newest technology at the time, the characters were projected onto the screens. Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. Formerly known as Rainbow Caverns Mine Train from 1956 to 1959, Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland opened on May 28, 1960. This attraction featured a train that took guests through Bear Country, Beaver Valley, the Living Desert, and Rainbow Caverns, where you could see mighty waterfalls cascading off Cascade Peak, beavers building a dam, brown bears swimming and resting, cacti resembling humans, balancing rocks, the Devil's Paint Pots, which were bubbling pots of mud in all kinds of colors, geysers shooting water high into the desert air, and the famous colorful glowing waterfalls inside Rainbow Caverns. This train ride's loading platform was in the western mining town of Rainbow Ridge, and we could see many animals in the natural habitats like beavers slapping their tails and diving in the water, black bears diving for fish in a mountain stream, deer having fun on a hilltop, boars sniffing the air, coyotes, owls, crows, and mountain lions. In all, there were 204 animals in their natural habitat in this attraction. This attraction was terrific, but sadly, due to the growing popularity of thrill rides, Nature's Wonderland was closed to build a new great attraction, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which opened in 1979. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad reused many things from Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, like the Rainbow Ridge town as a loading area, a tribute to the Rainbow Caverns, and of course, having a runaway train as a ride vehicle. But that's not all. After the ride was closed, many elements of it remained throughout Frontierland. You can see the tunnel and fish from Bear Country while you walk along Big Thunder Trail. Then you can find the tunnel that leads the train to Cascade Peak, all boarded up with tracks leading up to it. And if you board the Mark Twain riverboat, you get to see a lot of things left from this attraction. The abandoned track can still be seen, with a large boulder sitting on it. You can also see the tunnel the railroad passed through on its way to Bear Country from the back. You can also see what's left of Cascade Peak, which was removed in 1998 due to instability. And up to 2010, guests could see an old engine and 2 carts that used to be part of the attraction. But in 2010, Disney Imagineers decided to remove the engine and cars and place the boulders we can see now. This attraction was groundbreaking at the time, and it is so great to see so many remains of it today. Which of these attractions would you like to have experienced? And which ones would you like to see back? Let us know in the comments.